Today is July 1st, Canada Day. Normally, we would be spending this time having barbecues with friends, drinking on patios, and enjoying the day celebrating our country. I'm still extremely proud to be Canadian. I feel that my life and my journey as an immigrant to this country and what I've been able to achieve would not be possible in any other country in the world. I really believe that. At the same time, I have to recognize that the history of this country, especially in the way that it's treated its Indigenous peoples, is something that we have to grapple with, and it's a hard truth. So today, for Canada Day, I'm taking part in the Every Child Matters Walk, which is organized by the Toronto Fire Council, an Indigenous peoples community center here in Toronto. We're going to walk from Dundas in Parliament to City Hall and reflect and take that moment to be with each other and think about the impact that the Canadian residential school system has had on Indigenous peoples, on generations lost, and on the residential school survivors. Today I am heading to the Every Child Matters Walk to honor the discovery of residential school children's bodies and grave sites and unmarked graves across Canada. Today is also Canada Day, and it's a difficult time for lots of Canadians who, like myself, are only really learned about the tragedies and the horrific nature of the way Indigenous peoples were treated in adulthood. I didn't really learn about this stuff when I was in school as a kid, and as an immigrant it's a little bit more complicated too, because it feels a bit separate. But I've come to realize that being part of Canada is accepting the good and the bad and trying to work towards a better future. And immigrants are settlers too. The land and everything that we're able to do and be a part of in the society that we have today is built on Indigenous territories, Indigenous lands, where Indigenous peoples have lived for far longer and were treated terribly. So again, I'm so proud to be Canadian, and I love this country. And I think that today is an important day to try and recognize that Canada isn't perfect, but we are working to be better. So we just made it to the corner of Dundas and Berkeley Street. The Every Child Matters Walk is starting just behind me here. It's going to start at Dundas and Parliament and work its way down to City Hall. I'm just going to walk through the crowd here. The number of people who have come to show their support for Indigenous issues in Canada. It's quite something. So we've started our walk and we're making our way down to City Hall now. There's a lot of people here. So we just finished the walk. We're here at City Hall in Toronto, and there was a ceremony. Elders were speaking, and it was really powerful. We're gonna make our way back now, but there's still some stuff going on behind me. It's been a strong day, and I think it's important to take time to reflect also on this country and everything that's happened here. So I just got back from the Every Child Matters walk. It was a really powerful moment to be standing there in a sea of orange with other folks who were taking the time to reflect and listen to the stories of Indigenous peoples, of residential school survivors, and really reflect on the history of this country. As a candidate, as an immigrant, as a Canadian, I feel that I have a responsibility to talk about these issues and use whatever platform I have to help educate and have a conversation and a dialogue about truth and reconciliation, about Indigenous peoples, and about the identity and the history and the legacy, the terrible, terrible legacy of the residential school system in this country. So much work still needs to be done. Today, there are communities, Indigenous communities, that do not have access to clean water. Today, Indigenous children are overrepresented in child services. So I know that this vlog is supposed to help chronicle the journey of running for office. And I know that people are probably watching this just trying to understand what this is like firsthand. And I've come to realize that being a candidate, everyone expects you to have an idea or an opinion or a thought on everything. That being said, no one can be an expert in everything. And I am the first to admit I have so much more learning and work to do when it comes to Indigenous issues in this country. As an immigrant, I think a lot of immigrants have a sense of distance from Indigenous issues in this country, especially those people of color. Racialized people who feel marginalized themselves today perhaps don't feel any responsibility or onus on Indigenous issues and the sins of the past, the sins of the primarily white Catholic past. And that being said, to be Canadian means to embrace every part of Canada. Its diversity, its multiculturalism, the good and the bad, its history, the good and the bad. As a person of color and an immigrant, I believe that we have an immense role to play in truth and reconciliation, in being allies to Indigenous peoples in this country, in recognizing that we too are settlers, that we too are benefiting from the land where other peoples have lived for far longer than we have. When we acknowledge this land, we take a moment to reflect on that, on the society that we live in now, on the systemic racism that we are experiencing, and how we can try to make it better going forward in the future. There has been a lot of talk this year about canceling Canada Day, and I for one don't think we should. I'm proud to be Canadian. I'm proud of the progressive, multicultural, and inclusive society that we do have. It's not perfect, and it never will be. Nothing is ever perfect. But the fact that we can today have a moment and that millions of Canadians in this country are taking some time to reflect on its history and think about how to move forward together, that's something that I think we should all be proud of. When we have Canada Day, we normally celebrate that with our friends and our family. Some of us just enjoy the time off. Some of us enjoy the time with our friends. I think it's important now to also think about the history of this country. So much work still needs to be done, and every single person has a role to play, every Canadian, on truth and reconciliation. It's our duty to try and understand what has happened in the past, to try and improve the present, and try to build a better future.